Hi, Dr. M here again. I was thinking of taking a little class time to talk about study habits, but we're a little bit behind, and I've had a couple people asking me about some good ways to study. So here are a couple tips. First off, you never, ever, ever want to spend too much time reading the book. If you're reading a book 3-4 times, you're wasting your time. You're not going to learn much additionally. You might remind yourself of a few things, but you're not really going to learn anything. So what I recommend you do is first skim through the book, the assigned reading, then go back and read it carefully. Take notes on it as you do, and then close the book and put it away for a while. You might want to go read through it again the night before a test or something, but just once. Okay? We know that our brains are set up. We used to be hunter-gatherers, and we're much better at that type of thing than we are at remembering words. Words came much later. Our faraway ancestors needed to remember where the fruit trees were that came into bloom and what time of year they did and where everything was in relation to everything else. And that doesn't happen, or that's pretty much the main part of our brain is for that. Language got added on. And so remembering words and things like that is a lot tougher for us than remembering places. And if you don't believe me, think about this. If you've ever been stuck on a test and you know what the answer is and you can see you don't know what the answer is, but you can see what page of the book it's on. You know it's on the right-hand side about halfway through the book. It's right underneath a picture and you just can't place the words, but you know where the words are. So we're going to try to turn that to our advantage with one of the techniques I'm going to show you here. Another thing that you want to do when you're studying is do active techniques. Don't keep rereading your notes. It's just as bad as rereading the book. Rewrite your notes. Put them in different ways. Come up with different ways to remember words. And the final thing for general advice is that it's important to learn all the terms. I'd say probably 80% of the questions people miss are because they don't understand the terms. So focus on the terms, learn them. If you have to make flashcards or whatever, that's great. A little more psychology. It turns out that if you write things out longhand, it sticks with you better than if you type it. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Now, for you guys, the main thing is to be rewriting. And if you're redoing it on your computer and you're typing that stuff up, that's great. Okay? That's better than just rereading your notes. But if you can, get out some paper, or if you have a computer that has the ability to use a stylus or something, go ahead and actually rewrite your notes the way I'm going to show you here. So what I've got on the screen is just a standard paint program that comes with Windows. I don't know that I'd use this long term, but it works perfectly well for our purpose here. Now remember back when we were talking way back when one of the first things we talked about was the relationship between ecosystem, environment, and community. So let's think about that in a different way. Instead of writing out that formula, ecosystem, oops, I need to get a pen here. Pen. Ecosystem equals environment plus community. And again, writing that out itself is a help. Okay, you need to know what all those terms are, so you want to be thinking about that a little bit. And so what I'm going to do here is come up with a pictorial way of putting this together. So I'm going to draw a big, ugly circle here, and I'm going to draw 2 more circles inside it. The outer circle is the ecosystem. Here we have environment. And here we have community. Okay, so those are our main terms, and what we've done is we've made like kind of a Venn diagram that shows that the ecosystem contains the environment and community, but the environment and community do not overlap. And then we can expand on this. What is the community? The community is the biotic component. It's all living organisms. Okay, And the environment, on the other hand, is going to be the abiotic component. And it has the non-living components. Okay, and then you might want to give some examples of these: rocks, water, air. Okay. We might look back at our ecosystem. We've been talking about things like photosynthesis. And so we might want to point out that energy comes into the ecosystem. Oops, energy. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that you might do to put all this into a pictorial thing. And by doing that, you're doing a couple things. You're writing it out, which is good, and you are putting it in a picture form, and you can start to remember this a little bit more easily. You might remember this diagram a little bit more. It's kind of like you can remember lyrics to songs better than you can remember spoken words, because the melody carries along with it some of the lyrics, and that comes into your head. And that's another technique for memorizing stuff, is to put it to song. So if you're good at singing, you might try that. So let me go in here, delete all that. Whoops, it didn't take. There we go. Okay, so what are some other things that we could do? Again, you could make flashcards and things like that. You could look at something a little bit, let's look at something a little bit more recent. We're talking about defenses. We were talking about defenses. And we had several of them. We had morphological. We had chemical. We had numbers. We had behavior. And I forget all what else, but I might want to list them all out. And so then you might want to give some examples of each of these. And for morphological, I might say spines on cactus, turtle shell. And for defensive chemicals, I might put down, and we haven't really gone into the details of many of these things, but I might put down, say, the milkweed plant. We didn't really name any chemicals. We just said there are poisons in them. Oops, plant. And then you might say, remember how that was passed on to the monarch. Butterfly. Good example of numbers would be cicadas, fish schools. And you might want to go online and look up some other things. And behavior, flying, running, hiding, attacking. Something goes after a predator, the predator's going to fight back. So these are a number of things that we could do. And the monarch butterfly might lead you to think about something else. In particular, it might lead you to think about not just the chemical defenses, but it might get you to think about mimicry. And so we talk about mimicry, and there's two types. There's Batesian, and there's Mullerian. Okay, and so we get those done, and then we give an example of them. Bees and wasps all kind of look alike. And Batesian, a good example of that would be a flower fly and a bee. Or we might have the pipevine swallowtail. Oops. And the tiger swallowtail. And it's just some of the females that do that. Okay, so by doing this kind of thing, I think you can see how we could extend this out. Okay, we also could have put Crypsis in here. And you could say this is blending in. And oh, you know, there's so many examples of this, of things that blend in pretty well. There were a number of things I showed you in the class, like the moth on log. That was a good example. We had some other ones that were in there. You could put those in. You could also go online and get pictures of these things and put them in. But I wouldn't spend a lot of time getting too fancy with something like that. Because again, the thing is to be actually writing it down, not assembling something that's beautiful. You write it down, study a little bit, then put it away and write it up a different way. Okay? And again, going on, you know, other things that that could lead into this. We just start off with defenses, but we have this chemical stuff, and one of the obvious things that we might want to be dealing with that is the fact that these organisms often have aposematism. So you get in another word, sematism, and you could put warning coloration. And then you might notice the link between the two types of mimicry. Those are both related. It's usually a model that, like the bee, that is being mimicked by the fly, but the bee is showing the aposematic coloration. Okay? So those are just a couple ideas of what you can do. And again, the last thing, you know, Google is your friend. If you are looking at Google, and boy, I had a bunch of stuff up here. Let me just pop up a new window and bring it out. And so let's say you're studying something like this and you want to study, let's say, Crypsis, okay? And so you go like that, and security networks and stuff like that. But there's a Wikipedia article. Okay, and this wouldn't be horrible to look at. I gave you very similar examples, but there's all kinds of neat stuff going on here. They talk about camouflage, which is really kind of visual Crypsis, and here's a good example of a lizard on a log. And they also talk about olfactory and auditory ones. We didn't go into that kind of detail on that. We could also go back. We talked mostly about visual Crypsis. But we could also go back and look at the images and look for things that really blend in, and maybe you see something. I mean, some of these are, let's go with cryptic coloration, get away from some of the text stuff. And so you could look at some of these and look at some of these relationships. And maybe now and then you see something that looks really cool and you want to know what it is, so you click on that. And this is the difference between aposematism and cryptic coloration. That sounds kind of interesting. Compare the difference between similar terms. Okay, and then here's something that you could read through. And you know, not everything's on the internet is true. You might want to be a little bit careful. But it goes through and it lays it out in a little bit different way. And you can take some notes on this as you're looking at them. Okay, so you know, aposematic and cryptic coloration are functionally opposite. You might list these as bullet points under this in some notes. Both types of coloration save prey species from predators, kind of defensive mechanism. They're not necessarily mutually exclusive. Okay, and so that would be some nice things that you could go into. So whatever you decide to do, okay, go ahead and you know, pick an idea of what you, how you want to rewrite your notes, and just go ahead and rewrite them, and rewrite them a lot, and that will help. And I hope by now you've noticed the quizzes largely come from the lecture notes, and particularly the text in the lecture notes. So focus on those a little bit. Again, I'm giving you a lot of dessert with the pictures, but you don't necessarily have to know everything about the pictures. That's just to reinforce the concepts that are written out on the slides. In any event, good luck with your studying.